All righty, a good Tuesday morning to all of you. Welcome in the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Great to have you along with you until 1. We do this Monday through Friday, 11 to 1, here on the Big Play Sports Network. We broadcast live from the Burke Lakefront Studios. We love it here. And, of course, if you can't be here, well, you can also find us on Twitter each and every day, Monday through Friday, at Chico Show CLE. Also, you can head over to YouTube if you're not already. Subscribe, the Chico Bormann Show. We also are available after the show, I believe, on iTunes and wherever you get your podcast, basically. So if we're still working on the live version, but in terms of right after the show, I think it's available at 1, so you can hear the entire thing. If you watched it and then you just, did I really hear what I think I heard? You can do that, or you just want to tune in and get the very latest. So you can do that also on the App Store, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, whatever they're called. Ryan, all those things, iTunes. All those things you can check out. All right, as I just mentioned, intern Ryan again in all this week for our guy Mr. Bombastic. I have not heard from Bohm, so I assume either things are going well or he's dead. And I'm going to go. Hopefully, I'm going to go with the former, as he is playing his gigs down in Myrtle Beach somewhere and close to some other places as well. Wait a minute. What is who are these people on the wall? Like we have drawings on the wall. Okay, that's Bobby and Schlegs, right?
Yeah. So Cody was in here doing his art yesterday before the Reflog show. So viewers can't see, but on the left here, I believe that's Nick Weary and his wife Mickey. Those are the Major League Eaters. And then Bobby and Schlegel.
Oh, okay. So, are Nick? We have professional eaters.
We do.
Are on. They have a regular show.
Not a regular show, but they came on the Reflog show. I know Nick's a fan of the show, and I know we're trying to maybe set something up with them again. But no, they don't have a regular show, but they're just good friends of the show.
Okay. All right. So we're expanding the wall, not only with the roster, the active roster, but we've got friends of the show making the wall.
The wall's getting crowded, I'll tell you that.
All right. This is good. Who's my ugly mug next to? That's right below. I see Josh. Well, you know what? We don't have camera.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know who that is.
It just hit me. Like I looked over at you. I didn't see it before the show, and I'm like, wait a minute, who are these people? So yeah. Cody does a tremendous job with the wall. By the way, the T-shirts, I can't wait to get mine. I've got my no drinking in the Muni lot with the Leo, and then I've got the, I believe it's a sky blue Jose Ramirez standing over Tim Anderson, who will not let it go. Dude, you got knocked out. You got knocked out, man.
He threw up the Dukes first and got laid out.
Yeah, and he's still like, well, we'll settle this later. Dude, it's done. It's been settled. You got knocked out. You didn't, lose a fight. I mean, you did, but you got knocked out. Like, you started it. He finished it. There is no next chapter. I know Tim Anderson, he wants there to be a next chapter because the only chapter ended very, very badly for him. And you know what? The sad reality is he's a guy who has had what I think a pretty good career. I think he's very underrated, but he talks a lot of garbage. He can be Bush League, as he was, as we found out that weekend. And Jose just finally said, all right, enough's enough. And he was just warning him. And then Tim Anderson's like, all right, well, put up your Dukes. Umpire backs away, and Jose's like, all right, enough of this. You're going down. Down. Not like you felt it. You down, out. Like 1, 2, 3. You're out. And this guy is like, well, we'll settle this later. Already done, pal. Already done. So anyway, we got our shirts. Go to Big Play Store on Twitter. Trust me, you want to get your hands on these. Cody was all over it like the moment it happened. And not just that, we've got all kinds of good stuff there at Big Play Store on Twitter, and go to bigplay.com. He's got just really, really good merchandise. All right, we've got what we hope is a very, very good show for you lined up today. First of all, if you want to chime in on the telephones, you can do that, 216-626-7901. We've got intern Ryan here, as I said. Browns and Eagles, day one of the joint practices. They will finish up with the joint practices today at 5. And we will talk to Mary Kay Cabot. Long time in covering the Browns and doing it very, very well for the Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. She was on the ground, and of course, as Mary Kay always does, great observations, insights. So we'll talk to her coming up at noon. What else do we have going? Guardians are back in town. Well, I shouldn't say back in town. They're actually back in play, but they're just down the road, down I-71 to take on the Cincinnati Reds. They're 57-62. I feel like everybody's just kind of forgotten. And that's now I get it. Like I wasn't okay with it back in May when you people were like, the season's over. But at 57-62, the roster being what it is, and you know, it's Browns were a month away, so less than a month away. So I get it now. If you've turned your focus, because they're not really doing a whole lot. However, speaking of the Guardians, this weekend they will be inducting Dale Mitchell and one Manny Ramirez into the Guardians/Indians Hall. I can say Indians Hall of Fame because he was an Indian. All right. Just got to make sure I've got it right. But Manny Ramirez will be going in. He's going to have a bobblehead night, I believe, on Saturday. We're going to talk to Bob DiBiasio, the senior vice president for the Indians/Guardians. He will join the show on Thursday. This is always, whenever you talk Manny Ramirez, but I feel like this can be like a once-a-year type thing. But now that he's going in, we never need an excuse to share Manny Ramirez stories. Like my favorite, I'll have Bobby tell it, my favorite Manny Ramirez story of Manny being Manny, and he was a damn good hitter. I mean, unbelievable hitter, right? Manny Ramirez, during the OJ trial back in 95, there was a lot going on then, right? You had the OJ trial, the Indians were on their way. The baseball was on their way to a strike. Well, they did strike in 94. It extended into the season, so it was only a 144-game season. Don't worry, the Indians still won 100 games that year. But in addition to the Jacobs Field and Indians mania, OJ was on trial. Well, like everybody, whether you're a professional athlete, an accountant, a lawyer, a talk show host, a student like you. I remember I was a student at Ohio State way, way, way back when. And I remember I was running the board at WOSU. We had a live sports talk show. Shout out to my guy, Herb Howenstein, who got me started in the business. So all of you that want to, if you don't like me, blame Herb. If you do like me, credit me. No, I'm just kidding. I love Herb Howenstein. But anyway, Herb's in the middle of doing a sports show. We got breaking news, the OJ update, and the OJ, the verdict. But prior to that, all of the lead up with OJ was the Bronco chase, right? And so when the Bronco chase happened, and I'm not going to go into it. If you don't know it, you can Google it. But so OJ and his buddy Al Collings are just going down I-5 in California, and obviously OJ is a wanted man. At that point, he was a suspect, the number one suspect, but he was a suspect. And him and AC were just driving down I-5, and everything stopped. Like everybody's just watching TVs across the country going, what are we watching? Oh, that's OJ in the back of that Ford Bronco, and that's, half of the California State Highway Patrol chasing him. So, again, like everybody else, it's being shown everywhere, including clubhouses. And Manny walks by. I can't wait for Bob. And this is just one of many with Manny. This is how Manny being Manny, one of many. So they're all standing around in the clubhouse watching this. I think it was, a tape version. I don't think it was the live. But they're watching it, and it just says, everybody's saying the OJ chase, the OJ chase, the OJ chase. Well, remember at the time, the then Indians had a reliever on their roster by the name of Chad OJ, spelled O-G-E-A. Not OJ, but O-G-E-A. Well, Manny just hears the OJ chase. Manny assumes that the California State Highway Patrol are chasing their teammate, Chad OJ, down I-5, when in fact it was Orenthal James Simpson. Like, Manny was like, what did Chad do? What's going on? And like, I'll have Bobby tell it, but essentially, like, the guys were kind of looking around and looking at Manny like he's got to be. I mean, even though Manny can be Manny, he's just joking, right? He had no idea. Like, that's what made Manny so great, in addition to being one of the best right-handed hitters I've ever seen in my lifetime, was that he was so aloof. And that's part of what made him so lovable. So, like, some of the guys around him are hearing him say what happened to Chad, and they're like, Manny, this is O.J. Simpson. This isn't Chad O.J. Oh, who's O.J. Simpson? One of many, many great Manny Ramirez stories. He goes into the Cleveland Hall of Fame, the Indians Hall of Fame, on Saturday. So we'll have Bobby D ahead of that coming up on Thursday. But Mary Kay talking Browns at the top of the hour. Well, we've had a lot of overreactions throughout preseason. This is what this is for. Like, preseason game, Hall of Fame game. What did we do on the Monday after that, or the Friday, I should say, after that game? It was on a Thursday. Well, all right, let's have your overreactions. And then the Washington game last. All right, let's have your overreactions. Well, I think that the offense, or are they gonna be okay? Is Jordan Elliott, is he gonna make the team? And not necessarily overreaction. Some are legit observations and insights. And then there are observations given by my good buddy, Fanboy Nick. And just to catch all of you up, Nick Padone, who is our social media guru, he's very good. Some of his sports takes, I think they leave a lot to be desired. That's okay. I mean, that's not his main role. But they're entertaining nonetheless. So, again, to refresh your memory, he was the one that, he was calling for DeAndre Hopkins in December. He was, I don't know. Oh, Donovan Mitchell was seen playing golf with Allen Houston, and him and Nick and Big Shot Bob were just beside themselves. Like, they were, out in the tarmac waiting for an airplane to run him over because they thought, like, oh my God, he's leaving. And well, Donovan Mitchell's still here. And yes, we all know that he loves New York. What was another one? Oh, I like the good baseball one from Fanboy Nick too. Like, Bo Naylor's not catching on Sunday afternoon. What? Tito he doesn't like him. He's trying to lose. Maybe Tito needs to be fired. Maybe, what is this? Well, Nick, he caught the previous 3 nights. That's part of the game. Now, you can question. Tito's made some questionable things. The front office is, they made some pretty big mistakes this year, or last offseason to be exact. But if you don't understand the concept that, like, when a guy catches, and goes back to Pudge Rodriguez, Sandy Alomar Jr., when you catch 3 nights in a row, you're probably not going to catch that next day game. Okay? It's pretty simple. It's not that hard. So here is Padone after we get word that Myles Garrett injured his foot, which we'll find out from Mary Kay. Hopefully it's, nothing's changed from after practice yesterday. It's nothing. He was out in his bare feet signing autographs. He got kicked. It's not the same foot, by the way, that he had the dislocated big toe and all that. And, Jack Conklin had a concussion. Those do happen in football. It's a contact sport. And Denzel Ward left because he was sick. So, here we go. Fire it up. Fire up the fanboy Nick overreaction hot take machine. Oh, yeah. He says that he wanted to go on record as saying that he's against joint practices because they breed something along the lines of it breeds contempt and injuries, and it's just not good for the teams. Something along those lines. I can honestly say I've never heard anybody say. I've heard people say, like, yeah, you get a little, you got to, but like every coach, every football analyst, but just let's just stay with the coaches. Keep in mind, there's not a whole lot you can do these days in the CBA with the new CBA. They're very limited. And also, for good or for bad, whether you like it or don't like it, Kevin Stefanski is very methodical. I mean, it's just the way, and I kind of like that about him. So, I mean, everything's ramped up. He's got everything down to, I think, the minute in terms of 1 minute of mini camp to the end of training camp to getting ready for September the 10th. So, you've been hearing all about installation early in training camp. For instance, the Hall of Fame game, he was like, hey, it's great that we're playing in it, but we're not necessarily going to change what we're doing because we're playing in the Hall of Fame game. It's still training camp, so the installation phase. And then after the Hall of Fame game, you heard him say, okay, now we transition. We're still installing, but now we're going to start to get into, we're going to kind of put this into motion a little bit. Practice is going to be a little more up-tempo and faster. So you gradually ramp up. Now, nobody's ready for week one. Honestly, I've said this it's not going to happen. I mean, even back in the days where they did have 2 or 3 a days, like Bernie and Hanford's days, there's going to be adjustment period. Now it's even more so. This is why we talk about, man, we can't tackle anybody? You can't hit anybody. Now, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's what it is. So I say all of that to say this. Kevin Stefanski said recently, matter of fact, he said it before training camp. Before training camp. Forget about the preseason games. The 2 most important days for us are going to be the joint practices in Philadelphia with the Eagles. You may have heard that they went to the Super Bowl and they're a very good team. And so when we get an opportunity, and everybody does it now. I mean, everybody's doing it. Now, maybe they're just bored. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's no rhyme or reason to why they're doing it. Maybe they're just bored. Or maybe there's a good reason why they had. Maybe this is about the best preparation they're going to get under all the new rules that they're going to get ready for the regular season. And before anyone says, and boy, Nick, well, but what about the injuries? Oh, my God. They still need to get their time in. I mean, a guy's going to have his foot stepped on, as reportedly it was for Miles. Jack Conklin, and I'm not making light of concussions, but Jack Conklin's going to get a concussion. Denzel Ward gets sick. It was really hot. I mean, I don't know. But the idea, here's what I don't understand. Like, if you say you don't like the joint practices because it breeds contempt and then, fighting and injuries or whatever, what do you think's going on in Berea? Like, if anything, this is, hey, you know what? If I'm going to beat up on somebody, it's good. What do they always say? It's good to finally beat up on a guy on the other team or to get a different look. Like, you're ready for that. Now, most of the time, guys would say that back in the day with preseason games, but now this is kind of taking the place of preseason games. The joint practice is what it is. Practice. Padon's like, it's practice. It's only Why does it have to be so competitive? Why do they have to be so mean?
Nick's listening right now, and he's wondering why he's catching so many strays this early.
Oh boy. Okay, so Mary Kay just said they moved practice up. I'm guessing because of the weather. So we won't talk to Mary Kay at noon. We will adjust on the fly. We'll figure it out somehow, some way. So we will hopefully be able to have Mary Kay tomorrow is what she's saying. Damn. Because it's all right. I want to go off on more of a tangent. First of all, this is what I'm saying. What I want to know with Padone, and I said this before, right, with the whole Savali, and I remember his response, like, oh, I'm cool with Civ in the MLB. Like, yeah, you know me. Like, just say, like, Savali and baseball, whatever. But Padone, I love him. Like he's like my little brother. Is the way I look at him. Like I'm proud of him because as far as like social media and I don't even pretend like I am clueless on that crap. Okay, and yes, I get made fun of on a regular basis. It's nothing new. It's been happening for years now. So when Nick's like, yeah, Chico, we have this thing called the internet. Yeah, okay, I shut my mouth, right? But when he says stuff like, again, the Bo Naylor thing, and when everybody was all upset about Savali getting dealt, but you were the same people in May going, well, the season's over, might as well deal Bieber and get whatever you can. So what I'm trying to figure out is, does Fanboy Nick say this because, and I know he's into the content thing, which is big. Look, we're all into content, okay? But for me, like doing a show every day, I mean, I want it to be fun. Hopefully this is entertaining. If it's not, then, well, I'm really screwed. But for the most part, I do want it to be like a sports talk show, informative and guests, and that's why we do what we do here at the Chico Bormann Show. Big Play, this great company that I'm now a part of, and I'm so happy to be a part of, a lot of it is like, you'll see a lot of clips and impressions, and that's great. That's where a lot of this is going. And I can't for the life of me, Ryan, perhaps you hang out with him pretty much every day during this internship, so maybe you can shed light on this. I can't figure out if Padone makes these statements knowing that it's going to draw fire, thus content, which I don't necessarily like to do that. Now, look, if it happens naturally, hell yeah, that's what it's about. But I think this is what he really believes. Like Naylor, like I'm convinced he really didn't know that like the Sunday after 3 nights of starting behind the plate, you don't start behind the plate. So, and then now with joint practices, like, I've never heard that from anybody. I mean, you always fear injury, but like, do you think that like Jed Wills couldn't step on Miles' foot? That only happens in Eastern Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, by the Eagles. It breeds. Actually, these are safer than preseason games because these are controlled. Right? Like these are, now you finally get what happens with these, from what I've been told. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody in the locker room, but from what I've been told, that people that know a lot more than I do, is that, yes, I mean, you're hitting somebody else, you're going to get different looks, but like these guys will get together. And of course, there's history, Schwartz and hell, Andrew Barry in Philly and Stefan. So it's all one big fraternity anyway. But don't think for a second that they're not getting together before all this and saying, hey, obviously we're going to tell our guys, take it easy. Some guys are going to go crazy anyway because A, the tempers are flaring, and that happens. That happens in real football too. B, some of them are trying to make a name for themselves. And well, if it means that I've got I take the quarterback to the ground, they're talking about me, whatever. And I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but some guys have that mentality. This is controlled, though. Sorry, Bernie, I got to move you over a little bit. I love Bern. It's controlled, which means, like, they talk about, hey, Kevin, what are you looking to, you know what? We want to work on our, our intermediate passing game today. Really kind of, if you guys could show us this look, you got to do your thing. But okay, yeah, we can work on that for a couple of plays, allow you. So that's the back and forth, but it's controlled. But Padone says he doesn't like that because it breeds. Why even watch football? I don't like this game. Well, what's the matter, Nick? This breeds anger and meanies. Guys that want to hurt each other. This isn't good. Every coach in the NFL they have these 2 dates. Whoever they're with, some of them do it more than one. Usually they don't. But whoever they're paired with, which has now become standard practice, pardon the pun, circled. Because they know, like, okay, we're going to be able to get a lot of work. Hopefully these 2 days we get a ton accomplished. Thursday's game, the ones aren't going to be playing. You'll have the backups, and then obviously the last game against the Kansas City Chiefs. No, and I'm this was something I was going to pose to Mary Kay, and unfortunately we can't talk to her today because they moved practice up, so we can't have her on the air at noon. But there are going to be, for instance, Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper. I almost combined them. Damari, I like that. Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper, they haven't. Yesterday wasn't Amari's best day. He had a few drops, which is completely uncharacteristic. Do I think Amari Cooper's going to be fine? He stays healthy, but it might take a couple of games. Again, they just don't have the reps. And yes, going back to last year doesn't help that he was hurt when Deshaun came back. And this is why essentially when you build a great team, and you have a great team for year after year after year, well, the idea of I don't know, the idea of Patrick Mahomes getting on the same page as Travis Kelce is not a big deal because they're pretty much, they're kindred spirits. They one practice, couple practices, yep, we're good to go. It's not going to happen when you're changing faces or you haven't had that time because of circumstances. So, nobody's going to be ready day one. But the goal is you try to be as ready as you can, and the joint practices allow you the opportunity to do that more so than any 2 days from the beginning of training camp to September 10th. But Padone says, I want to be on record as saying that I don't. Let me read. Let me see the tweet. Okay, so Ryan, I'm sorry. I asked you a question, then I just rambled on, as I like to do. Do you believe these are legitimate, this is what Nick feels, or do you believe this is, well, Chico, you're talking about it, and I'm all about content. Let's go. What do you think it is?
I don't want to speak on his behalf.
Speak on his behalf, for God's sake.
But no, I think he believes what he says.
Which is even worse. Yeah.
And in this generation, it is hot takes are kind of, super spicy takes, obviously, are the ones that get the most views and impressions. But I think he, for the most part, what he says, he definitely believes, which I think is a testament to him. Like you said, I don't like people that just spew hot takes, spew them. If you believe it, it's one thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into fake. And so I'm glad to hear that, and I'm not glad to hear that. It scares, like I said, his main role, and he's good at it, is social media. And now I think he offers up takes on Mondays with the Reflog Show. And I think, he's a guy that I can definitely talk sports with. But this is where I kind of just, it's one of those where they have all these memes out today, or as Booney says, memes. God love Booney. He's just like me with social media. Is it GIF or GIF? I have no idea. But how they have that one meme where the guy with the frizzy hair, and he gives you that look. He's just like, that's what I feel like occasionally when Nick offers up these takes. I'm on board. I want it on he wanted it on record, almost like, yeah, you know what, you're right. And it just, everybody was like, that's just dumb. You're on record. You want to be on record having said that you're not a fan of joint practices because they breed contempt and fights? I don't know. I have no idea.
By the way, Chico, the joint practice today was moved from 5 p.m. to 1:45 today because of bad weather.
Right. And see, full disclosure, peek behind the curtain. So Mary Kay, actually right now, although that probably got moved up too, she does other content for Cleveland.com. So all of that was well, now everything gets, so I get it. Mary Kay is awesome. She is great at what she does, and if she could, she would. But if practice moved up, my guess is the weather there probably isn't going to cooperate. So we'll try to get her tomorrow. Tomorrow is Booney talking baseball, but if we can get her in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll do that. If not, she said, I can work something out later in the week. So that means much more of me and you, Ryan, and Padone. Maybe we can bring in Padone. Yeah, maybe.
I was going to say, maybe Padone can call in and fill in for Mary Kay.
Now, well, no. There won't be filling in for Mary Kay because Mary Kay's good. She's very good at what she does. Nick, I'm not sitting here saying, because nobody likes the talk show host that says, yeah, you don't know what because everybody's got an opinion. But I think it's okay in Nick's case because he goes on record a lot, right? Like he's in the industry, even though his title is social media director and all that, and he's very good at that. He's on the air quite a bit. And I think he has his own podcast, right? I'm not sure if that's, because he's got, his plate is full. And I want to be clear about this. He does a lot of, I was going to say shit. I don't want to say that. Not because it's swearing, just because he has a lot of stuff that he does. And and I'm finding this out more than anybody. I'm used to being in the radio business where you get in your car, you turn on your radio, it's on. There's a lot that goes into getting stuff out, and it ain't easy. And Nick is one of the best I've seen with this. But again, with the good comes the bad. All right, let me try to find this. I know we've got fair or foul coming up. Let me just real quick. I don't want to feel like I'm ghosting Mary Kay. So you go ahead and say whatever you'd like.
I'm curious. We have a plethora of takes that you mentioned between the Donovan Mitchell, the joint practices, and Bo Naylor. But I'm curious, which one would you say to you was the most outlandish?
Well, the Donovan Mitchell he wasn't alone in. Bo Naylor he wasn't alone with, but again, that's other. There are fake baseball fans in town. They are they didn't grow up with baseball, and that's fine. I don't care about that. That now are on the Fire Tito bandwagon. I'm not saying Nick is Nito. I'm not saying Nick is, but the hot takes, the Bo. So I know that he's not a big baseball guy. That was kind of the point of me calling him out with Savali and Naylor a while ago. Because he made the comment, every year they're just a bridge to get me to football, which is kind of funny because the Browns, and I'm a diehard Browns fan too, but the Browns, if that's been your bridge to get to what? A team and an organization that for the past 20 plus years has been a joke. Now, hopefully they're on the right track now, but they still have a lot to prove. Now they have talent. For the longest time, it was the Browns select Corey Coleman. Browns select Johnny Manziel. Browns select Justin Gilbert. Browns select Barkevius Mingo.
Brandon Whedon.
Browns select Brandon Whedon. So now they have talent. But when Nick says, and I give him credit for not taking it down, but he confirmed what I already knew. When Nick says, you know what, I just can't, they traded away. All right. They're all they are to me in my lifetime is a bridge to get to the Browns season. He didn't even say football. He said the Browns season, as if now I get to watch a real organization. Now we get to watch perfection at its best. Mind you, 9 of the 10 seasons they have been winning record, 6 of the 10 playoffs, and I get it. They haven't won a World Series, and I get frustrated too with the spending, but that's the landscape of baseball. Now, this year you can be upset at the front office. They don't make many mistakes. They made a few big blunders this year in the offseason. So yeah, I'm not saying they're without criticism, but if your take is that this is why the Indians will always be a bridge to the Browns for me. Well, okay, that confirms like exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I don't like baseball. Therefore, I don't like the Guardians or the Indians, and therefore I don't really follow. And the only reason I follow them is because I have a little bit of action courtesy of my friends at Tipico on whether or not the starting pitcher is going to be over or under 4.5 strikeouts. That's the only reason he watches. I mean, let's just be honest. So the Bo Naylor thing didn't really – it did and it didn't get me because, again, I know he doesn't really understand that. The joint practices, like what? If you fancy yourself a diehard football fan, and I think he does, and he says like it's just a bridge to get to Browns. So I'm going to go with the most recent. Maybe I'm living in the moment. Maybe I'm too reactionary, but Nick's saying that I want to, and I think what he was getting at, like he thought maybe, because it's just like Donovan Mitchell, he was. Did you know Donovan Mitchell was seen playing golf with Allen Houston? Oh my God! What? So like as soon as there's a report on Twitter that Myles Garrett limped off the field and hurt his foot, Nick is like, perfect time to put it out there. I don't like these. Look, see, he's done. He's fine. He had his foot stepped on. Now, I mean, God forbid, can a serious? Yeah, it can. It happens to them all. I mean, but you're against joint practices because they breed contempt. And you know what? I'm just going to find it. Let me just, I got to bring this up because it's, wow. He's a piece of work, I'll say. Yeah, he's catching some crazy strays. Yeah, they're real crazy. Yeah, those people that are reacting to you saying joint practices are a joke. Yeah, those people are nuts. Here's another guy. I feel much more confident about the running back room if the Browns were able to land Michael Carter. Yeah, that shouldn't be a big deal. I'm sure they can go out and grab him, just like your video game. All right, where is... How about I'm going to go to my, because I think I reacted to this. All right, I'm sorry. Again, this is where Nick is much better than me. He would have already found the tweet, retweeted it, liked it, put it on Instagram, Facebook, InstaFace, Threads, if that's still a thing. He would have had, so I give him all the credit in the world.
Can we have Nick call in? I need you guys to
if he
settle this beef.
I just want to be clear. I'm not doing this. Like I didn't set this up. Like I had the show all ready to go. Mary Kay was scheduled for noon. Now she can, if you're just tuning in. They moved practice up to 1 or thereabouts. So, okay, we shuffle. But like this was not me like going, I need more Padone on the show.
It was organic.
But I think, when I saw this come across Twitter, I'm like, this is, where's that emoji? Where's that wink emoji? Wink, wink. Where's that smile emoji? Where's that eyeball emoji? Like, no, he really believes that. He truly, truly believes that.
Chico, are you a fan of emojis? Do you frequent them?
You act like it's porn. Do I frequent them? Yes, I frequent
eyeball emojis.
I frequent emojis.
It's a younger generation
all the time. Yeah. Well, I will say, for the longest time, I hated emojis because I feel like when emojis first came out, full disclosure, I'm glad you brought this up, Ryan. Like when I was on the air, when emojis first started becoming huge, which maybe they were already a thing for a year or two, but there were guys that would tweet into the show or tweet me, and honest to God, if it was 140 characters, the actual tweet, words they typed was like, say, 97, and then it was hashtag all the words strewn together and emoji and smiley face and wink and that, like, dude, what? What? All right.
I think Nick might be on the line.
All right. Hey, he's gonna wait. I'm sorry. It's my show. All right. So, yes, he says I'm not a breeding ground for fights and injuries every year. Welcome to football. Football 101. I feel like I should I feel like I should drift into my John Facenda voice. In the game of football, there will be hot-tempered males with lots of testosterone fighting each other, going after each other, and, well, some of them may get hurt. Some may have a foot stepped on. Others may suffer a concussion or an upset stomach in 98-degree heat. But we carry on because we are the gladiators of the NFL. I don't really like these practices. They're mean, and they breed fights and injuries every year. We'll see what Nick Padone has to say about that when we come back. We'll push fair or foul to noon. Mary Kay was scheduled to join us. Practice got moved up. We'll do all that. I just took that. I breeding ground for fights and injuries every year. I could walk out to a flag football game and say the same freaking thing.
Chico, I don't know the last time I laughed this much before noon.
I appreciate that. I don't know if that's because you're usually not up, but I appreciate that. It means a lot, Rye. And you know what? Again, see, this is what I'm getting. See, Nick he's sly. Like, he knows what that's what I'm saying. Social media, he knows what he's doing. He may irritate the hell out of me 5 out of the 7 days of the week, but he's a guy I need on my side. Again, like a little brother. Like I think if somebody were like, yeah, that Padone guy, bleep him. I want to kick his ass. I'd be like, whoa. No. Now, I can say that. I wouldn't do that. I can say that. You can't say that. You could go out to a flag football game and be like, this is getting intense. Wait, did you just yell at him? Were you talking garbage? Because I don't want this to turn into a fight or an injury. Because it's a breeding ground for it. We'll take a break. When we come back, our fearless leader, Fanboy Nick, weighs in on the pitfalls, the obstacles, the trials and tribulations that come with training camp in the National Football League. That's all next, right here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. And we are back live on this Tuesday morning as we creep closer and closer to high noon here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. You can find us Monday through Friday, 11 to 1, broadcasting live on Twitter. You can access that very, very easy because of great social media, guys, at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube, you can find us. Go to the Chico Bormann Show. If you're not subscribing, hit that. You'll be all set to go. Now the show is available, not a live version, but right after the show at 1, you can listen on iTunes and iPlay and iHeart and I Do This and that, Spotify, all of that stuff. So wherever you get your podcasts. Also InstaFace, or Instagram, I should say. InstaFace was what Belichick said. I still think that was really great. All right, let's bring in somebody that doesn't find InstaFace funny at all because it's serious business. But damn it, what else is serious business? Training camp. To be specific, Ryan, joint practices. We're talking about practice, but these are dangerous practices. Let's head out to the phone lines and AI. Allen Iverson is what Bohm and I now call the automatic, or what is it, artificial intelligence. So we have a screener, and it's an automated system. And for some reason, now every time Padone calls, it refers to him as Nick Fidel, like Fidel Castro.
That's what I thought of as well.
Let's head out to Nick Fidel from Cuba, who would like to weigh in on I believe, joint practices. Nick, is this you?
This is me. I would also like to put on the record that Instagram is my least favorite of the social media platforms. So we could start there too.
It's too. See, now you probably don't like it for the reason I don't like it is it's too confusing. You probably have it figured out. You just don't like it for like a social media content reason. I can't. I still don't really know. How do I share? I hit that little airplane button or whatever. I don't even know how to share stuff.
Yeah, you got it. The airplane and then the add to story is how you share stuff. I just don't. They're always changing it, and like it used to be way better. Probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was way better. Things were in chronological order. You were able to know what your friends were posting, what, brands, athletes, influencers that you follow were posting. Now somebody will post something and I won't see it until 3 days later. It's like, oh, I'm
which
weird
is
if I like this now. This was posted 3 days ago.
Like it seems like that all across social media these days. All right, hey, Rye, I want you to mark this because what's going to happen is, I love this. This was a glimpse. Nick's not a spring chicken, but he's certainly not an old man like me. But these are the beginning stages of back in my day, which I get made fun of quite a bit. And because I did it when I was younger. Like people that I would work with early in my days, like in Columbus, I'd be like, oh my God, enough. And now people do the same thing with me. But Nick, he's starting to get it. Like, well, back in my day, it was much easier and simpler, and that's how we liked it. All right, so Padone, you've got an issue with joint practices. I
don't know that I would say I have an issue with them. They always have just made me extremely nervous, and I don't think I've ever liked them for that reason. Like it just feels like every year when these joint practices happen, injuries happen. I always think back to last year where there were people, and it was bizarre at the time, but it was literally like the top talk NFL story because there's not a whole lot else going on this time of year. When Aaron Donald got in that fight at the Bengals joint practice, and I think he did a Myles Garrett, and he was dual wielding helmets. I think he swung 2 different helmets. Did Aaron Donald, and people were wondering if he was going to get suspended. And I just feel like
Myles did that in a real game too, though. Like, I guess what I'm saying is that you go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. That was very rude of me. Go ahead.
No, you're good. All I was going to say is that just every year when they come around, they just always make me nervous. And I think for that reason, I've never really been a huge fan of them. I know that, a lot of really good football minds do like them. Stefanski has said ad nauseum that they actually value these couple of days in Philly. They were in Philly last year too. They value these practices more than they value actual preseason games. That it's just something that Stefanski's been a big advocate of in his time in Cleveland. Is that the best thing? I don't know. They haven't made the playoffs any year that they've done a joint practice. The only year that they did make the playoffs was when they weren't practicing at all and everything was on
So that's
Zoom.
the way. Here we go. All right, let's get it. So really, when when you don't have joint practices, that leads to, this is kind of like the Hudson board meeting. Like, well, that ice fishing, what does it lead? It leads to prostitution. Like, this is you connecting the dots to the year they made the playoffs because they didn't have. Here's what I would say. You mentioned Kevin Stefanski. Nick, I do feel very confident in saying that if there was a poll, and it could be an anonymous poll, 32 coaches in the NFL, are you for or against joint practices? Every single one of them, even anonymously, would be like, yes, absolutely, positively, I'm for them. Like, why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. I think I also find it funny that one of the only teams in the league that's not doing a joint practice this year is the Kansas City Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, not all of them. Not all of them do it, but Kansas City has had it in the past too. My guess is, this would be my guess with Kansas City. I don't have any inside info on this, but my guess is when your season goes that long and you're playing in the Super Bowl, and we hope that becomes the case, I think it does change your schedule a bit. And maybe the idea, I mentioned this with like Mahomes and Kelsey, but really even beyond that, like the idea of them needing to get on the same page and see other things. Well, hell, we've been playing in the postseason and deep into the postseason. That might not be it, but I wouldn't be surprised like next year if they don't go to the Super Bowl, they'll have joint practices again. Like, it's just, you got to see it. But the thing that I get, what I don't understand is that with training camp, you've heard this from guys when they're beating up on themselves. Like, God, I'm tired of, because guys are, at this point, they're A, trying to find jobs, some of them. B, they're veterans that don't want to deal with the rookies trying to find jobs, and they're like swatting gnats away, and they just want to get ready for the season. And so when you're same thing every day, and you're eventually, like, you're going to start beating up on your own guys. I'd rather they beat up, and beat up is really, like, these things are controlled. And I know that I don't think that's just something that we throw out there and dismiss. They get together. Now, again, are there going to be tempers? Of course there are, for reasons I just said, and because, it's football. But, like, these coaches and every coach and every team that has these get together and go, okay, hey, this is our goal. What's your goal? Okay, we can give you this look for a little bit so you can work on that. Hey, can you give it? That's just how they work. So it's not like they're going, all right, well, you boys behave while we're gone. We're gonna go inside and watch some film, and you guys go play. I don't know, smear the bad guy or whatever that's called. I can't say that on the air, right? I mean, it's controlled, Nick.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was controlled last year when Aaron Donald swung 2 helmets.
Yeah, it was also controlled when Myles Garrett did it into football. Like, it's football. Like, do you think?
Yeah, and I guess we're both kind of making the same point. Like, it is football. That's the importance of it, and I do understand that it's important. But that's also what makes me nervous as hell about it. That it's football. It is controlled, but it's controlled to what extent, and that sometimes things do and can still happen, just like they would in a game. But
right, but even in a controlled practice, like, they can't. They're not allowed to hit the quarterback. Just like, so I would think with this thinking, when we get ready for week 1, like, okay, it's the week of the Bengals. Gosh, I can't get here fast enough, by the way. But it's the week of the Bengals. September 10th is on that Sunday. Are you like? Is the conversation like, man, I'm excited and I'm nervous just because I want to see them get off to a good start? And then do we pan to you and you're like, well, I'm nervous because I think somebody might get hurt today?
Yeah, pretty much. Put these guys in freaking bubble wrap until the clock is 0-0-0 in warm up, and they're ready to run out there and start the game.
So they're ready to roll at the Pro Bowl. So keep these guys safe and healthy for when they go to Honolulu or wherever the hell they go for the Pro Bowl.
I miss those days. I miss the Honolulu Pro Bowl.
See, you're starting to get there with me, buddy. Back in my day, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's twice now. Instagram and the Honolulu Pro Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how we do things. All right. Anything else? Because I'm glad you called in. Like I said, you are, and I hope you realize this. Like, yes, there are times where I'm just befuddled, bewildered, whatever with some of your takes, but that's okay. I know at the end of the day, like, we have to have you. So I want you to know this is like a big bro, little bro relationship where, like, I can say this, but if some dude walks down the hallway, unless he's really huge and a badass, and he says, that Nick Padone, I want to kick his ass, I'm going to be like, all right, Rye, you take over the show. I got to take care of this. I just want you to know that's the attitude I have with you, buddy.
Yeah, man. If you think I have hot takes, there is an individual on Twitter, and we'll keep names out of it on air, but there is an individual on Twitter who I think would enjoy the opportunity at doing exactly what you said, coming down that hallway, down that tarmac at Burke Lakefront Airport, and having the potential of kicking my ass, because he is the true hot take. He's like Alex Jones.
It's not Sir. It's not Sir Yacht, is it? Is it Sir Yacht? Are you good with Sir Yacht?
No, I love Sir Yacht. Well, I understand Sir Yacht.
I don't understand Sir Yacht. I'll be honest with you. If Sir Yacht was standing in front of me right now, and I'm not like I think that's where like there are differences in mindsets. Like Sir Yacht can do his thing and he's fun and I'm not like, yeah, I know he's on some shows and I'm not, but like for me, like I don't look at him like video of him falling off the mound of a first pitch and go, holy shit, I got to get that guy on the show. You know what I mean? Like and that's where it just differs. I'm not saying he's a horrible guy, but it's just like, oh, wow, did you see? And I think maybe that's where we're a little different. But that's okay, because, Nick, that's what makes the world go round.
That is correct, Chico. And I think you gotta meet Sir Yacht off camera. I think when the Sir Yacht character is
he might kick my ass.
Bit and the actual Joey character, he probably would beat both of our asses too. He's huge in real life. He's like, he played college basketball. He's legitimately like 6'6", 6'7". Like, he is a gigantic human being. I think a lot of people like that haven't met him before don't realize how enormous he actually is.
Now, is he like,
but yeah,
tall big, or is he jacked big?
No, he's just tall. He's super tall. Like, compared to me, I'm 5'8" with shoes on.
By the way, I just did the most cheesiest thing I've ever done on this show. When you were talking about how jacked he was, I like flexed. Can we erase that? No. You're an idiot.
I didn't.
We're clipping that.
I missed it. I didn't have the video on because when the phone beeped and I connected, I realized that I was playing the audio from my phone on the call-in, and then also it was playing off the YouTube stream, and I was like, oh my God, they're going to bring me in and I'm going to sound like one of the 80-year-old men that call in the sports talk radio that have the radio on too loud in the background.
See, this is the other thing.
Video feed off
that is hilarious, by the way, because that does, yeah, I can appreciate that. That's the other thing. I think you guys are convinced my demographic is 80-year-old men. Because, like Dave...
No, just...
Go ahead.
I got my career in all of this started, like, I feel like very many people's career starts, and that's screening phone calls. And the amount of phone calls that I answered and said, ESPN Cleveland, this is Nick Padone, what's your name and where are you calling from? And in the background, I could hear Liz and Aaron yelling at each other. I'm like, up, you got to turn down your radio. I can't hear you. You got to turn it down.
You know what? Here's another aspect of it. And this is good. Peek behind the curtain for people. So you mentioned, like you said, and yeah, like I got my start that way and basically wearing any hat you're asked to do. But like, I can remember where I don't know if this happened where you guys were at, because maybe your board ops or your call screeners, like we had update guys where I was at, the 2020 updates, and which are good, and I loved all those guys. So they would also have to, because, God forbid we actually have somebody else that you have to pay, but they would actually have to also screen calls. There would be guys that would call in and they really didn't have any interest in going on the air. It was like my buddy Jake. It was like my buddy Jake Kaufman was just sitting on a couch and like, hey man, what's on your mind? My wife's she's nagging me a little bit, and I got to mow the grass. And I heard Chico talking about the Brown secondary and the finger pointing. I couldn't agree more. Now my boss is like, so finally, and I can see. When the lips aren't moving from the call screener, I know that I like in my head. So we would go to a break. Sometimes they were still on with them. Like they just didn't have they didn't have because they're too nice. Like Kaufman would just be like, yeah. Meanwhile, he's got to be on the air to do a 2020 update. So I would take the phone and I would go, hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Is this Chico? Yeah, it's Chico. How you doing, man? You coming on the air? Oh, no, I didn't want to go on the air. I just was talking to Jake. Could you do that another time? Could you set up a time to meet him? Like, why do you have to? Like, he's not there to just bend. You're not. They would just bend his ear. Like, oh well, let's shoot the shit here.
Dude, yep.
He has a job to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's amazing. All right, I just went on.
What would be crazy is they would be like mid interview, say a in studio interview and then a phone interview, like packed show. And these callers were so conditioned where they would call in and they would be like, hey, real quick, I don't want to come on. They would lead with that. I don't want to come on, but could you tell Riz that I said whatever? I'm like, no, I'm not Riz's notary. I'm so running the phones here.
This is so true. This is 100% true. And what's the other? Oh, I would also have guys. Now, this was towards the end because it was a 5-hour extravaganza, as Bowman I used to say. So, like, Ryan from Wakeman, who I like a lot, but he was a little out there. Sometimes you would get guys that were just like, hey, they would just want to go on the air. Like, either to say they're on the air, to be on the air because they're bored, or because they're with their friends. And I would like to have, if they were with friends, I would have some fun with them and, let's do it. But if I was in a bad mood, which, as you and I know, is about 95% of the time. So if I was in a bad mood and somebody would call like at 11:10 and be like, hey, what's the topic? And my call screeners would tell me this. They'd be like, well, Chico, he's just recapping the Indians played earlier tonight. He's just recapping that. What did he talk about before that? You know what, dude? How about you just listen on the freaking radio and don't, what are you doing? How about instead of calling the call screener, how about you just simply turn on the station or use your phone and say, oh, that's what they're talking about. I don't want to call in. Or that's what they're talking about. And yeah, I'd like to chime in here. Instead of calling the call screener to say, what's the topic? Idiot. All right.
Yeah. But people, I think it's one of those things where like stories can go on forever, but like unless you actually do it and spend months, even a year screening calls, like you don't really realize, like when you listen to the radio, you hear callers, call in all the time and you don't think of anything about it. But then like when you're actually doing it, like you realize what goes in behind the scenes. And I remember, people would call in to, our station over and over again, like multiple times throughout the show. And Chris Oldak, who was, the actual producer of the show, he was running the board. This was early on. I was just an intern. Literally my only duty was answering phones. And he was like, like when you see his name pop up on the caller ID, you don't have to pick it up. And I was like, I know. I just kind of like talking to him and busting his job a little bit. So that's how a lot of people get started, though. Screening calls at all hours of the day, night, weekends. I mean, and just talking to the Cleveland sports fan is kind of how I got started. And then we weren't allowed to talk like on air when I was an intern. So then that's kind of how I got started with like podcasting and social media, because I had so much to say, but I couldn't say anything at all. So what got my wheels turned.
Within reason, I always like bringing and I will say back then, to go back to the 5-hour extravaganza, like you can only have so much content. So like maybe, but yeah, no, I guess that's one thing I've always enjoyed is kind of, unless they're, idiots and I can't, like, even if I don't agree with you, I still want to, like Bowman, I disagree every day, for God's sake. Chico, I don't like your take on CJ Stroud. I think you're being
I think it was more like a corporate thing. Because we had like 8 interns in our class. So I think it was more of like, we can't let Nick talk, and then, intern Ricky can't talk because he can't form a sentence. I think it was kind of just like no interns are talking. And then when I was hired on, in a permanent part-time role thereafter, then I was able to talk.
Can I speak for let me speak for most of America employees. Screw corporate. That's all I'm going to say. All right. That's my sign off. Nick, it was I really enjoyed talking to you as always. I totally disagree with you on so many things, but that's okay. I love you dearly, and I'm sure we will talk again soon, because I'm sure probably tonight you're probably going to have another take that just blows me away. But keep up the good work. We'll talk.
I know.
Go ahead.
I might have to schedule some stuff out, because I don't even know. I wanted to watch the Guardians tonight. I'm going down to Cincy tomorrow, actually, for the game with my dad.
Do you have action on it?
But I don't know that I'm going to be able to watch it.
Did you see what this is, Ryan? This is his subtle way of saying, see, Chico, I do. You're saying I don't like baseball. I do, and I'm proving it by just throwing it out there that I'm going to Cincinnati to watch the game.
No, I got the under on the total runs tomorrow. You were right about it.
I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you.
Later, Chico.
All right, that is Nick Padone, fanboy Nick, as I like to call him. You know what? I didn't expect to clear it up. I just wanted it, like, it's okay. And he kept going back to Aaron Donald, and I'm like,
that felt very therapeutic.
Yeah, it did. Actually, you know what else was therapeutic? Was that's a great word. Like I love this job. Okay. And I love, nobody put a gun to my head when I was, 18, 19, 20 years old and said, hey, you got to, I enjoyed sports talk radio. I listened to it growing up. Full disclosure, like I was a huge Bruce Drennan fan at like age 12, 11. Like I would be listening to him. A lot of times it was, and I know a lot of people have the same story, like their dads or their brothers. For me, it was my brother. Whenever I got into his car, always had sports talk radio on. And like many others that age, I was always like, I don't want to listen to this. I want to listen to Power 108 and listen to and then slowly but surely it was like, oh, wait a minute. No, turn that back. I want to hear and then I was hooked. So I love this industry, and I love the callers, the fans. Like without them, we're not doing this. But it is always fun, just like everybody has in their job. Oh God, yeah, the one tax day, there's this one guy, one of my clients. It's the same thing. And so that behind the scenes with people, that used to drive me crazy. Like, and I understand chopping it up, especially like if you're a regular or maybe the board op or and again, in our case, like Nick said, he was an intern. That was his sole responsibility. Well, at night, my update guy or gal was also responsible for, writing and producing the 2020s, getting the website up to speed, making sure any current contact was on there, and answering the phones for I don't know what minimum wage or whatever it was. So they had to do all of that. So I was like, no, dude, you're not going to call in and just, because they're too nice. Like they feel like, well, that's part of their job. It's not. And if you're not going to tell them, I'd be happy to tell them. Dude, talk to your wife if you have one. Talk to your girlfriend, your kids, your dog. I don't care. Talk to your dog, for God's sake. But don't feel like you can call in and relive your day and talk about what your day, what happened in your. And if you're going to do that, at least do it with me. Don't do it with the call screener. Whew, It was therapeutic, Ryan. It really was. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back, fair or foul, with my man Ryan and Angel Hernandez to get to baseball for a second. This is this will be therapeutic also. Somebody that also gets on my nerves. Not as much as Padone, but close. Angel Hernandez is at it again. We'll talk about that later in the show as well. It's a Chico Bormann Show. On this Tuesday, stream us live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, also on YouTube. If you're not subscribing already, type in the Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and we do appreciate it. Back with more right after this. Who needs Bohm? We've had a fun Tuesday. Actually, I do miss you, Bohm, but we've had a fun Tuesday. And unfortunately, I'd like to say we had fun because we just had fun, but we had fun at someone's expense. But it did come organically. So as you said, Ryan, I can at least say that, it was a natural thing with fanboy Nick. All right, before we get to fair foul, coming up in a bit, Angel Hernandez. This guy, please, kind of like Tim Anderson right now. Just go away, dude. Go away. Take the L and leave. All right. Right now, it's time. My buddy Ryan in for the aforementioned Michael Bohm. It's time for a little fair foul on the Chico Bormann Show.
Alrighty, Chico. Speaking of joint practices, we'll start off with that. Fair or foul? The Eagles are the best team the Browns could have a joint practice with to prepare themselves for the upcoming season.
Yeah, you know what? I'll go fair with that. I mean, I guess you can say. I think when you put everything out there, like one of the things I wanted to talk to Mary Kay about was that I know Elijah Moore didn't practice yesterday. I don't know if he's practicing today. Again, for those of you that are just tuning in, we're scheduled to talk to Mary Kay at noon. Practice was scheduled for 5, just like yesterday, the joint practice in Philly. It's been moved up, I think, because of weather. But one of the reasons I was excited about Philly and was hoping that we would see Elijah Moore, who's out with some ribs, is that you've got Darius Slay in that secondary. You've got James Bradbury. Both those guys are very, very good. So just, the wide receivers and against Deshaun Watson, you'd love to see that matchup. But, I mean, again, great organization. Jim Schwartz, obviously very familiar with them. He wants to do with the Browns a lot of what he did with Philadelphia. I would say that from a familiarity standpoint, from just the organization themselves and the talent level and what you're getting, I'm going to go fair on that. Good question. I'll go fair on Philadelphia being the best option.
Alrighty, fair or foul? Bryce Young will finish higher than C.J. Stroud in Rookie of the Year voting.
I'm going to go fair. I think here's one thing that we haven't really discussed with this, and I understand that sometimes it's not an issue, but it should be even more so. Back in the day when they didn't have the cap, like as far as like a bonus, now they have that bonus structure. So like quarterbacks, I remember Sam Bradford when he first got drafted with was it the Rams, I think. And they gave him, he had a $50 million signing bonus. It's 5-0, not 15, 5-0. So if I'm an owner in that situation, I'm like, we didn't win many games last year, and if I just wrote a check to him for $50 million that had nothing to do with the contract, he's going to get his ass out there week 1. I don't care if he gets his head torn off in games. Now you can be a little more patient to a point, but I still think there's that, especially if you're a bad team. Carolina is trying to find, themselves a little bit. Houston definitely. But I'm going to say fair on Bryce Young, not only because I do think he's a great quarterback and at this juncture is a little bit better than CJ. I think CJ is going to be great too, but I think Bryce is better right now. But I also think if you're Houston, CJ Stroud still has a lot to learn. And could you make a case that Davis Mills, and I know he's not going to knock anyone's socks off. He's not going in the 5th round of anybody's draft. And if he is, you call that guy for me. I want him in my league. But Davis Mills right now knows the offense better than C.J. Stroud. Davis Mills might actually give you a better chance to win than C.J. Stroud. Now, again, I just mean that in terms of nobody's ready for the NFL, certainly at that position, the speed. Some people believe wholeheartedly you throw them to the wolves and let them, that's how they learn. So back to your question, that was a very long-winded answer for that question. But, I'll go Bryce Young fair, more Rookie of the Year votes over C.J. Stroud.
Now let me ask you this then. Who will finish higher in the Rookie of the Year voting? C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson?
Well, okay, I'll say Anthony Richardson He's already been named the starter. I think C.J. Stroud's going to be the starter from week 1 too. See, this is tricky though because I mean this. Not to get back to Jim Irsay and rail on him again, but let's do it. Why not? I mean, I don't know what's going on. Nobody really knows what's going on with this Jonathan Taylor situation. If you're a rookie quarterback, I mean, Jim Irsay, okay, maybe he's not playing anyway, and yeah, you're at odds with the contract, and he wants more money. All running backs want more money. But for God's sake, Irsay, like, you have a rookie quarterback that you just named the opening day starter, Anthony Richardson, who I think is going to have probably a pretty decent career. But you now are throwing him to the wolves and possibly saying he's not going to have a running back to lean on, or at least to the caliber of Jonathan Taylor. So I might actually go CJ on this one. Even though Richardson we know is going to start from week 1, I mean the Texans don't have but I think he has more of a chance than. Houston's line is not good, so that's gonna be a tough one. But I'll go foul actually on Richardson. I'm changing that as I speak, just because I don't know the Jonathan Taylor situation.
Alrighty, Chico. I was having a debate on this one with my friends. Fair or foul? Baker Mayfield will return to being an average. Stress that average starter with the Buccaneers. Has arguably his best weapon in Mike Evans of his career. And Chris Godwin is one of the top 5 wide receiver 2s you could have.
Yeah, I mean, and full disclosure, I was in favor of the Baker pick. I was kind of more of a Baker defender. I also came to the conclusion that while you can't count on him as a starter in part because it's not so much people say his attitude. Like I'd rather have a guy like that cared than a guy like Johnny Manziel. Here's the thing, though: the quarterback position. You have to have a calmness about you, and I don't just mean like in the huddle. I mean like, hey, you know what? It's 3rd and 7, and you're fired up. You got the adrenaline going. Quarterbacks have to have ice water in their veins. The good ones, the great ones. Baker, I came to believe, I never said he was a Hall of Famer, but people just wanted to throw him out like yesterday's garbage. But I came to believe that Baker would just get he couldn't channel it down. And that's why you'd see a ball late in the game when they're driving and he'd sail one, because when a guy's amped up, what's he going to do? He's going to sail the ball, and he would do it inevitably. But average quarterback, yeah, I can see him getting there. He's not terrible. You got Wirfs on that offensive line. Yeah, I'll say he's average. I mean, he's not a horrible quarterback, but he's not good either. Average is about right.
So, in that case, do you think Mike Evans will get his 10th straight season of 1,000 receiving yards?
Yes, only because I think he's going to be targeted a bunch. That's also saying yes that he's going to be healthy. But I think Baker when he finds his guy, he's going to latch on. And Mike Evans is a great receiver. I'm going to go fair, but I'll tell you what, I don't feel ultra confident about that. If anything, I just feel ultra confident about it because they play 17 games and there's just a lot of throwing in the NFL these days. So 1,000-yard seasons, unfortunately, aren't as big as they used to be. It's kind of commonplace almost with good receivers. He's great.
It'll be interesting to see. The Buccaneers led the league in passing attempts last year, so I'm interested to see the transition from the GOAT to Baker, what that offense is going to look like.
What was your stance with your friends in this whole debate?
I said average, yes, but that was with the grain of salt, I don't know, literal middle of the pack. Yeah, I think he has the weapons, and I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback.
He's not great though.
No, he's not great.
Were you guys also talking about Evans?
Oh,
no?
We didn't bring up the Evans point.
Oh, I thought that was the Evans. I thought that was the debate. Okay, I got you. That's on me.
Alrighty, talk some guards now. Fair or foul, Chico? Bo Naylor's defense has been a bit underwhelming.
I'll go foul. I only because, like, and this is what people. All right, here we go. Get ready. You don't just jump into the major leagues as a catcher, and this is why, like, they have been very cautious. And I know it gets on people's nerves. I get it. There's a lot to take in. I mean, you're trying. He's a good hitter, but you know he's had his struggles because that's a part of making the jump. But if you're coming up as a catcher, you know you're trying to develop a rapport. Like, it is so much more than just, hey, catch this ball, throw that guy out, you know, call this pitch. Like, you're so consumed with so many different things. You know, positioning the defense. Now, I'm sure a lot of that, because he's not a veteran catcher, a lot more of that comes from the bench. But, like, these are all things that catchers are responsible for, which is why, like, when people are like, put him out there again, you know, he does have, like, days where he just needs to chill. And not even, like, he's not hurt. He's got to have a mental day. So, like, when those days happen, I'm going to just believe, and I know this is hard to believe, that maybe Tito has info that the average Joe fan doesn't have, and therefore that's why he's saying, I'm going to. But I don't think he's been bad. I think it's what I expected. But I think the good news is, and the most important news is, he's going to get better and better with time, and in a couple years he'll be the starting catcher, and I think he'll be a good one for a while.
Alrighty, sticking with the guards here. Fair or foul? Tanner Bybee's odds to win Rookie of the Year should be higher. Right now, in most books, he's about 5th. Josh Jung with the Rangers is ahead of him. Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida, both from the Red Sox. And the favorite right now is the Orioles' Gunnar Henderson.
Good question. I'm going to say absolutely fair. I touched on this a little bit last week, or maybe it was the week before with Bohm. And I'll say it again because I think it's in play here. It's different with rookies because, like, in baseball, you have the awards, right? And pitchers have their Cy Young, and position players usually the MVP. Now with rookies, it's just Rookie of the Year. I believe what Tanner Bybee has done, and people can call this a homer call, but like I mentioned that transition, Bybee hasn't really had a he's just kind of, oh, okay. And most guys in his position, when you get called up, like Bieber had this, other guys, when you get Tristan McKenzie, and, you know, okay, you don't have to be the anchor in the rotation. Well, because the rotation had just gone to pieces and everybody was either hurt or gone or just underwhelming. Zach Plesac. It was like Tanner Bybee had to be the ace. You didn't just kind of slide in as the 4th or 5th guy and just kind of keep things going, no pressure. He had all the pressure and still does, but he had all the pressure in the world, and he just continues. And now what's fun is Gavin Williams is starting to get that confidence too, which is awesome. But Bybee absolutely, positively needs to be in the same conversation, the same odds in my book as Gunnar Henderson. He won't because the Orioles are the bigger story and deserve to be a bigger story, but I think the idea of the pitcher, like people in their minds, they just think of Cy Young, and that's okay for a pitcher. But when it comes to Rookie of the Year, they don't have a rookie Cy Young. But Tanner Bybee is every bit as valuable and has been every bit as exciting and dominant as a rookie can be. And I love Gunnar Henderson. He's one of the best young players in the game. But what Tanner Bybee has done this year, and now Gavin, but more Bybee, what Bybee has done this year has been nothing short of absolutely incredible, because he really hasn't struggled that much. And now he's taking it to a whole new level. That Philadelphia game, I keep saying on that Saturday night, had every pitch. And it wasn't like, well, you know, my fastball was good. He had 4 or 5 pitches, and he had confidence in every single one of them in any count against a lineup that had the likes of Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Trey Turner, who I know had been struggling. He's better now. Tanner Bybee, I'm glad you asked this, because whenever I get the opportunity to say, it's like Josh Cribbs to the Hall of Fame. Whenever I get the opportunity to say Tanner Bybee for Rookie of the Year, I take full advantage of it. And I think he has every bit and deserves every bit of the consideration that those other guys do.
Alrighty, last one for you. Fair or foul? Ellie De La Cruz is currently the most exciting player in baseball.
Okay, Shohei's banged up right now. I mean, Shohei's number one when he's doing both. Ronald Acuna is pretty freaking good, too. Like, Ronald Acuna, I love watching Acuna. Ellie De La Cruz, just because I won't say the most exciting, but he's in that conversation. So I'll hedge a bit. But, yeah, I mean, when you watch him run the bases and you watch him, like, when he first burst on the scene, I remember watching that video, and I just replayed it, like, 8 times in a row, going, this dude is flying. And then, like, oh, well, okay, you want to check my bat? You think I might be cheap? All right, I'm going to launch one 480 feet. Take that. Like, he's a different cat. So it's a great question. I'm going to go fair or foul because he's right there with, in my mind, Shohei when healthy and Ronald Acuna.
I agree. Right now, he's my favorite player to watch, and that's probably
fair.
Recency bias, of course. But yeah, I would agree with you. I didn't even think about I guess technically most exciting is, of course, has to be Shohei. But I do love. Right now, I think my favorite to watch is Ellie De La Cruz.
Now wait a minute. You went to UC. Are you from the Cincinnati area?
No, I'm from Macedonia, so I'm Cleveland born. I don't actually like the Reds. I like Ellie De La Cruz,
and that's okay if you are.
Love the Bearcats, and people always ask me that. Love the Bearcats. Definitely my favorite college school, but any professional, Cleveland till I die. Like Reds, no thanks. Bengals, I hate. Basketball, they don't have one, so can't hate that. But if they did, I would.
Okay, I got you. I was just curious there. I think, I mean, I got to say this for the Reds. You talk about stories, and like the Orioles, you at least could see them building towards this, right? The Orioles, you could at least. They ended last year. They made, it wasn't like they went from, worst to first. Still, they've been a great story, and unfortunately, their owner made them look like an even bigger story, but in a bad way. But the Reds, I didn't see this coming from the Reds. I mean, now but I had no idea. Like, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were. Everybody, not just we in Cleveland or everybody in baseball is like, what are these owners doing? And now all of a sudden it's like they're a huge story. So I think it's kind of cool to see. And of course, the Guardians are in Cincinnati beginning tonight. I think that's just a quick 2-gamer. Am I right?
Yes.
2-gamer before returning home. Okay. But yeah, Ellie De La Cruz, that dude can play. Ellie De La Cruz can play. He would not want to play, and he doesn't play, and he's grateful for not having to play a game when Angel Hernandez is behind the plate. We'll touch on that when we come back. Also, if you want to chime in, 216-626-7901. More of the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty. No music. No baseball. That's okay. That's all right, Ryan. We can do it. We can do it dry. It's no big deal.
Distracted by the Angel Hernandez I was reading.
Okay, that's all right. Welcome back, kids. It's the Chico Bormann Show, final half hour or so here on the Big Play Sports Network. Gorgeous Tuesday outside, a little bit cooler, which we like. Day 2 for the Browns and the Eagles in Philadelphia. If you're just tuning in, they had practice moved. It was 5 o'clock yesterday, scheduled for 5 o'clock today as well. The joint practice, that has been moved up today to 1. We were slated to talk to Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Obviously, that can't happen because of her obligations with the Browns and covering the Browns. So we'll do that sometime this week. Guardians back in action, just talking about that. They are in Cincinnati beginning tonight. And I mentioned baseball before the break. So we all know, and I think we talked about it we did talk about it just last week with Booney, and we'll have Brett Boone on the show again tomorrow as we do each and every Wednesday. So there are a lot of bad umpires, and some of it, like I know, hey, it's there's a human element, so they're not going to be 100% perfect, and you know. I don't necessarily want robot umps either, so I guess I want my cake and eat it too, and part of it. But, like, there are bad umps. There are average, and then there's Angel Hernandez. Like, I feel even like C.B. Buckner's not good, okay? Joe West wasn't great. Angel Hernandez he's on a whole nother level in a bad way. He's so bad. And part of what makes an umpire, like, and I know Booney said this numerous times. One is, okay, just be consistent. But 2, and this is where you will draw the ire of fans, media, players, everybody, is if you're not only bad, but it's all about you. Like, you really feel like you hear people say this, but it's not always the case with every umpire. Matter of fact, the large majority of them not the case. But a guy like Angel Hernandez is not only horrible at, like, making a call, but being consistent, but also, like, trying to avoid the spot. Like, he wants the spotlight. He wants you. He'll even egg you on. He'll even be a catalyst, if need be, to get you to say something, to get him to say something that eventually he can toss you on him, because that's not coming from just me. Everybody knows that. So Angel Hernandez, in a nutshell, sucks. And by the way, when it comes to promoting umpires, baseball, I honestly, I don't know if it's different today. As recently as just a few years ago, like, you know how in the NFL, in the NHL, in the NBA, you're graded, throughout how you do, your crew does the regular season, and then you're rewarded, and it should be a reward to get playoffs, and then ultimately, an NBA Finals, a Super Bowl, a World Series. It should go to the best of the best. Just like the players and the teams, umpire or officials, the same thing. In baseball, it never was. It was like it is truly the old boys network. Like, if you have seniority, you're golden. Now, a guy that's 5 years into the league might not have obviously doesn't have the seniority that someone 25, 30 years in, but he knows the game better. He makes calls better. He's more consistent, and he doesn't try to be the show. So that's the guy. A lot of times but that guy in that crew, because they all travel together. You got your own crew. Well, you're not the crew chief. So for the longest time, even before replay, but even with replay in the beginning stages, let's say the 5-year umpire knew, he was right on top of the play. Or he was totally clued in on what was going on. Those guys were so afraid. It was kind of like, it's kind of like a mafia thing, like Sopranos. Like, nobody wants to go up to Tony if you're not made, and you can't go up to Tony and be like, dude, you freaking blew that one. Don't talk to me like that. That's what the senior umpires act like. a lot of times. So, like, if you're a guy 5th year in and you know damn well that guy missed the call, instead of just wanting to get it right, it's don't step on anybody's toes. So baseball, I'm just setting this up that baseball has always kind of been way behind in this area, and it ticks me off, quite frankly, as a baseball fan. Again, nobody worse than Angel Hernandez. So here we go. Umpire Angel Hernandez. This is courtesy of ESPN. Umpire Angel Hernandez lost again in his racial discrimination lawsuit against Major League Baseball when a federal appeals court refused to reinstate his case Tuesday. You say reinstate his case? Yeah, he's already been turned down on this before. The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a 2021 district court decision that granted Major League Baseball a summary judgment. Hernandez, who was born in Cuba, like Nick Fidel, who was born in Cuba and hired as a big league umpire in 93, sued in 2017. He alleged he was discriminated against because he had not been assigned to the World Series since 2005 and had been passed over for promotion to crew chief. Okay. So he loses in court once. He says, the reason I haven't been promoted, and by the way, he started in 93. It took Major League Baseball roughly 12 years to realize, you know what? This guy's so bad and we get so many complaints. No, we don't want him in a World Series. Playoffs he still got, but not a World Series. And thank God. Like, there's some justice to all of this, right? Like, you're not gonna ump a World Series. Well, Angel's like, well, you mean I need the spotlight, right? So he had sued Major League Baseball once, started it in 2017, 2021, they finally get around to it, and they say no. Well, this is him trying to get it again. Like, hey, you guys missed it. You know, it's kind of like in A Few Good Men. What if the old man just said, man, you were just wrong. We got to do this again. You ordered the cook. Man, that guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll make my case now. No, Major League Baseball, Federal Court of Appeals said the same thing they did in 2021 and in 2017. You're wrong. But what I don't understand, the reason I bring this up is not so much, well, it is to make fun of Angel Hernandez. But I remember saying in 2021 when he lost the first time, how embarrassing it must be for him. Because if you're the judge in this case, or you're the panel or whoever, like basically you're saying to him and everybody, Mr. Hernandez, we've heard your case. The reason that you have not been promoted to a crew chief, the reason that you have not umpired a World Series since 2005, although you've had some playoff games, is not because of any discrimination practices. It's because you suck. You're terrible. And like the judge had to have said that to him. Because, or maybe he didn't, and this is why he's trying it again. So like maybe the first time they were trying to be nice to him, like, Mr. Hernandez, we don't find any evidence that Joe Torre, because I didn't realize this, Joe Torre is now in charge of like crew chiefs, like who becomes a crew chief, like who becomes maid, who becomes, you know, the top mob guy, Tony Soprano, Joe Torre. Yeah, what's the matter? What? Busting my what? So Torre makes this. Now, of course, Angel Hernandez is saying, oh, this goes all the way back to to Joe Torre not liking calls I made that went against him. Well, dude, I got news for you, Angel. Joe Torre, along with managers that would line up all the way to the break wall out there in Lake Erie. That's how many people would be complaining about your calls. It's not just Joe Torre. Does he think you suck? Yes. That's why he hasn't promoted you to crew chief. But don't blame others for your faults. Like, you're a bad umpire. Not only are you a bad umpire, but this is how you make it worse as a bad umpire. When you're a bad umpire, and like I said, you almost, like, you want to become the center of attention. Those two combinations are awful. Some guys have it, but not to the extent of Angel Hernandez, which is why I think he's the worst ever. Ever. Like Booney has said, we talk about Joe West, and a lot of people have complained, and players and managers and over the years would complain about Joe West. Booney's been very honest about him, and he said, there were times where he'd make some bad calls, but he goes, for the most part, like, he was fairly consistent. He wasn't the most consistent, but he was fairly consistent, and he was a decent guy. Like, Angel Hernandez is not a good guy. He's constantly trying to, like, annoy people. Well, congratulations, you succeeded. And because of that, and because you're terrible, nobody wants you, and don't bring this to the court again. So, but Booney would say with, like, Joe West, I think he just said last week, like, he'd step in the box and he'd say, say Joe West would say to him, well, hey, Booney, start of the season. Hey, Booney, I see you haven't grown any since last year. And Booney would be like, hey, fat ass, why don't you leave the donuts alone? All right, and then that's how then you step in and, you do your job, I'm doing my job, and that's it. Did he agree with everything? No, but Angel Hernandez is on a whole nother level. And yet, he's so narcissistic and naive and oblivious and whatever adjective you want to throw in there, that he honestly believes that there is a conspiracy against him. So he's taken it to think about this. Federal court. You think the feds don't have better things to do with their time than to iron out whether Angel Hernandez is being discriminated against, and that's the reason that nobody wants to give him a shot at being a crew chief or another World Series? Do you, with everything going on in our world, and I'm not politics or anything, but everything that we've got going on in our world, in our country, you think the federal court's like, all right, so we got to take care of that, then Angel again? Didn't we already deal with this? Yeah, he didn't buy it. So I'm hoping this time they did do what I just said. Like, the judge, instead of being nice about it, they said, look, what we said last time still holds true, okay? We don't find any evidence of anybody discriminating against you. But obviously that didn't clear it up for you because you filed this again. So let's be very, very clear about this. You, Angel, are terrible at your job. Awful. One of the best one of the worst I've ever seen. Any of us have seen. Like, we went back and we looked at calls and we're like, and then you're trying to incite the manager and the bench and nobody likes you. You're terrible. You're terrible. You're lucky you still have a job. Just say thank you, cash your paycheck, and try not to piss anybody off, but we know you will, but we're not going to promote you, or they're not going to promote you. But now we have to tell you in this way, because you obviously don't get it if we tell you there are no facts that they discriminated against you. You're just awful. Like, even as attorney, like, if you're his attorney, like, of course you're going to take his money, right? As his attorney, aren't you like, you know what, Angel? You're not going to win. You're my attorney. It's your job to win. No, I can't win. Like, it's not a matter of I can't win. You're that bad. I know I've yelled about you. I'm your lawyer and your buddy, and all those times that I said, wow, you're really, I was lying. You're not good. You're awful. You're one of the worst I've ever seen. Get out of my office. So anyway, Angel Hernandez. I really don't know how he's still doing it. I really don't. All right, so we got somebody that Ron wants to talk about Angel Hernandez. Ron, let's delve into Angel Hernandez. What's up, man?
Hey, Chico, how you doing, man?
Good.
So after that whole rant you just went through, you would honestly take him over a robot behind the plate.
Yeah, we've already talked about this. Yeah, you brought this up last week. It's tough for me because I still like the human element, but he would be the one exception. So, yeah, I mean, the robot umps are going to happen anyway. But, yeah, I know. To answer your question again, because I know you asked this last week, like, yeah, He's the one
He's
guy.
one of the major reasons why for the umpires, in my opinion.
There's many of them, but he's by far. Well, I guess what I'm saying is there's bad umpires, but to be clear, Angel Hernandez is on a whole nother level. Like, he is just, and it's not even. It's one thing to be bad. It's one thing to be bad and inconsistent. But it's another thing to be bad, inconsistent, and absolutely positively know that you're trying to incite people to chatter back at you and embrace that. And that's my biggest problem with him, and everybody's biggest problem with him. And that's why he's, never going to be a crew chief. That's why he's never going to umpire another World Series. It's that. Okay? Ron's gone. Good. All right. Yeah, he brought this up like a week ago. And he's like, would you? And it's a good question. Bohm used it for fair or foul. Fair or foul, you'd rather have Angel Hernandez or over a robot ump. And I can't answer that. I would honestly have to say a robot ump. And I like, eventually they're going there. I might as well accept it. Maybe it'll work out. It won't be a big deal. But I will say this. Like, also part of the entertainment, I'm a hypocrite. I'll be the first. I'm a total hypocrite. Because part of the entertainment for me or a fan or anybody else is what? Criticizing the umps. Like, how they say going to a baseball game, like, oh, you get a dog, you get a beer, you yell at the ump. Like, that's part of it. What are you, blind out there, Blue? Like, I mean, that's part of the experience. You're not going to have that. But it's also 2024, and joint practices probably shouldn't happen either because they're very dangerous and they breed contempt.
What year is it, Chico?
2023. It's close.
We're halfway there.
It's a good time to end the show. Did I really say? Okay, I meant that it will be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what year it is. But I do know that joint practices have merit. That much I do know. As far as what year it is, where I live, what my purpose in life is, I have no clue. But I do know that joint practices are legit and they're beneficial. And that's why the Browns and Eagles are doing that right now and not at 5 o'clock because the weather was bad and all that. All right, we're out of here. Mary Kay Cabot unable to join us because of the practice being moved up. Possibly tomorrow, probably sometime this week before we're out on Friday. But coming up tomorrow, definitely, as he does each and every Wednesday, a guy that knows firsthand just how bad Angel Hernandez is. And because he's too nice to admit it when he's on the air, I mean, he'll rip me to shreds. He'll even take a shot or two at Bohm, although I think he plays like Bohm's an ass kisser with him. Hi, Booney. Hey, Bohm, what's going on with you? Like, when Booney just gets tired of talking to me, which I don't blame him, and be like, whatever, Chico. How's Bohm doing? But Booney knows how bad Angel Hernandez is. We'll talk about that. We probably won't. Talk Guardians. We'll talk Reds. We'll talk about playoff picture. Shohei Ohtani on the shelf a little bit. He's having some issues with that finger, and it's been a while now. So we'll talk about everything going on as the races continue in Major League Baseball, but unfortunately don't include the Cleveland Guardians. Ryan, excellent job as well. Are you back here again tomorrow?
I think I'm here all week, Chico.
For more punishment. For more punishment.
It's never a punishment.
We appreciate it. All right, the Chico Bormann Show. We'll be back with you again tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Until then, folks, you make it a great Tuesday, everybody. See you. That was great. I was going to say anything at first, but that was like...